Hey, JNUC, welcome to our session, Federated Authentication, a conversation about Apple device management. My name is Joshua Patrick. I'm an Apple engineer at Connections Technology Integration and Distribution Center in Wilmington, Ohio. Let me introduce my colleague and co-speaker, Brett John.
Hey there, Brett John, Apple Business Development Manager for Connections Public Sector Division.
Today's session will cover federated authentication as it relates to Apple Business Manager, Apple School Manager, JAMF Pro, and JAMF Connect.
So Josh, I think a great place to start for everyone is, what is federated authentication in the first place?
Well, federated authentication, sometimes referred to as a federated identity management, is the process of using an account's username and password, an identity, from one directory system in another. So user credentials are passed from one directory system to another seamlessly. The other system or service provider will then trust that originating identity provider to validate credentials.
Okay, so essentially what you're saying is that if your organization has an identity management system, we'll take Microsoft Azure or Active Directory, for instance, then federated authentication allows for those same user logins and passwords to be mirrored for use on their devices, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So what is single sign-on or SSO? Is that the login credentials that we're talking about here?
Sort of. So single sign-on is an extension. It allows users to access multiple services with a single set of credentials and a login session for a specified duration of time set by your administrator. So once a session has been authenticated, you can access multiple linked systems without the need to sign into them individually, at least until the session duration expires. So you could take your Microsoft login credentials and sign in to Zoom if that platform is supported.
Okay, cool. Okay, so SSO is that set of login credentials. It just allows the user to stay logged in so they don't have to authenticate themselves as often.
Exactly.
That's great. That's great. And so how does that end up helping, like with help desk tickets and things like that? I would assume that those go down or they reduce because people don't need to log in as much or deal with passwords as much, right?
Right. So basically, federated authentication can reduce IT overhead by delegating that identity management to a single provider and then improve the end user experience because it only requires a single set of credentials to access multiple company resources. And imagine because of that, fewer service desk calls because they only need to remember a single password for both their Mac and all their other company resources.
Okay. All right. That's great. Okay. Yeah. I think everybody would be fully supporting for less help desk tickets. That's for sure. Okay. So if federated authentication and SSO allow for a single set of login credentials, which need to be used less frequently, and they stay logged in longer, then how does that help an organization secure their fleet of Apple devices?
Well, it can help secure your Apple fleet by improving capabilities to include features like managed Apple IDs, account provisioning, identity management, password synchronization, directory lookups, and reducing the total number of logins and potential compromise. So, managed Apple IDs are owned by the organization, and administrators have a lot more control over what features can be enabled. Account provisioning and identity management give your organization more control over how and when company resources and devices can be accessed. And password synchronization helps secure your Mac to ensure the latest cloud identity password matches your local Mac password. And then directory lookups can assist with device scoping and logging for the IT administrator.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Okay, so how does federated authentication or an identity provider with SSO get incorporated into Apple device management?
Well, it can be incorporated into Apple device management in a number of different ways. So, Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager support federated authentication with Microsoft Azure AD for the creation of managed Apple IDs, and JAMF Pro and JAMF Connect support a variety of different identity providers for configurations, including web access, for example, the JAMF Pro web app, enrollment customization, login authentication, and as mentioned before, password synchronization.
Okay, so the system creates managed Apple IDs for each user automatically based on the identity provider that's in use, right?
Yes.
So it's really a no-brainer that organizations should be using this solution then. How does federated authentication and an identity management solution like Microsoft Azure, how does that get set up in Apple Business or School Manager?
Well, you can incorporate Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager with federated authentication in 3 steps. Add and verify your domain. This may require modifying a DNS record to verify the domain is legally owned by your school or organization, and then set up the federation process by connecting and authenticating as a Microsoft Azure AD Global Administrator, and then turning on federated authentication. Once that's complete, you can test the federated authentication process to verify it's completed successfully. And if you want to set this up, you can use the QR code on screen, scan it with your phone, and go to the Intro to Federated Authentication with Apple Business Manager documentation from the online Apple Business Manager user guide. This documentation from Apple contains all the information needed to enable and test federated authentication for the purpose of creating managed Apple IDs.
And similarly, this QR code provides access to the online user guide and documentation for using federated authentication with Apple School Manager. So setting up this solution within Apple's portal seems fairly straightforward, and they even provided a guide for how to do that. But how easy is it to set up federated authentication and your identity provider with JAMF?
Well, within JAMF Pro, you can set up single sign-on or a cloud identity provider to accomplish authentication, authorization, and directory lookup workflows. These configuration options require authenticating via an Azure AD connector application, and JAMF and Microsoft have online documentation available with step-by-step instructions to enable these features. But it's very important to carefully read the documentation prior to attempting the setup to verify the person setting up each connection as the correct group membership and permission in both JAMF Pro and the corresponding identity provider before following through, as this will help eliminate or reduce any configuration issues you might have going through setup. So you can follow along by using the QR code on screen for the Cloud Identity Provider and Single Sign-On sections of the online JAMF Pro Administrator's Guide. Enabling Microsoft Azure AD as a cloud identity provider will allow certain LDAP workflows, while enabling single sign-on will add support for single sign-on portions of JAMF Pro, such as logging into the web app.
It's really awesome how Apple and JAMF have made it easy to get federated authentication set up so that organizations can leverage the great benefits that it provides. So, speaking of those benefits that we mentioned earlier, how can everyone set up syncing of local passwords with what is stored in their identity provider?
Well, JAMF Connect is a great tool for that. JAMF Connect is a Mac authentication and identity management solution that will synchronize passwords between your chosen cloud identity provider and the local Mac account. Setting up JAMF Connect is built directly into JAMF Pro. Create an app registration in the Microsoft Azure portal. Then in JAMF Pro, choose the version you want to deploy and create a configuration profile with the required settings. Once completed and deployed, enjoy the benefits of having your password synchronized automatically. Setting up JAMF Connect is as easy as that, but customization is the fun part. The online JAMF Connect documentation includes general requirements, authentication protocols, security information, and the available identity provider integrations. JAMF Connect supports many advanced features such as JAMF Unlock, custom menu bar settings, and even custom branding for your school or organization.
I personally love the customization options available as part of deployment and management through Apple and Jamf. That's just my opinion. I think it's great. So that's how Apple and Jamf figure into this fantastic solution. But where do we at Connection fit in? Why buy Jamf from Connection instead of directly?
Well, Connection offers valuable services and solutions, including an ISO 9001:2015 certified configuration lab in Wilmington, Ohio, known as the Technology Integration and Distribution Center, or TIDC for short. We're an Apple certified service provider, corporate reseller, JAMF managed service provider, integrator, and gold reseller, and employ a team of certified Apple solution architects. Our team is experienced with Mac Evaluation Utility, Apple Provisioning Utility, and Mac Provisioner, and offer professional services and solutions to meet your business needs. Connection can offer a variety of services and solutions for all your Apple and JAMF related needs, but it doesn't end there. We're also experienced in many other MDM platforms and can assist with MDM to MDM migration.
So what you're saying is as a gold reseller, JAMF partner, we at Connection can obviously help with all of the typical licensing needs for new seats and renewals that come along with licensing. But as an integrator, we can also help stand up new instances of JAMF Pro, and our managed service provider status means that we have certified JAMF technicians like yourself who can provide assistance from small consultative work all the way up to running an entire JAMF Pro instance based on guidance from the customer and how they want it to operate.
Exactly. Connection pretty much does it all.
Great. And speaking of where Connection fits into the conversation, scanning this QR code on the screen will take everyone to more information on how we can help with the purchase of Apple devices. Connection has partnered with Apple since 1984. We're one of their oldest channel partners. And we provide the care and assistance organizations require, including offering the entire catalog of Apple's unique and innovative solutions. We can do automated device enrollment of purchases into Apple School of Business Manager. We can do inventory stocking of popular devices or organizationally established standards. We can do integration with e-procurement systems. We have customizable web portals for purchasing, as well as self-service access to typical reporting, like on orders or serial numbers, and a whole lot more than that. And since we're an authorized partner for higher education, institutions can also benefit from the collaboration and relationships between Connection and Apple's direct education sales teams, all at the same pricing Apple establishes for the higher education market.
And as I had mentioned earlier, a little bit about the TIDC, if you scan this QR code, you can learn all about Apple at the TIDC, what the Technology Integration and Distribution Center can do for your Apple business.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, Josh, and for everyone for joining us today. We just kind of want to wrap by just sort of like letting you know where we are in our position to the space and our approach to the market. I mean, obviously, Apple's devices are great and magical. Steve Jobs used to say that they just work. And that's certainly the end user experience and high satisfaction that Apple drives with their devices is a key focus of them and what they do. But from an experience standpoint for other departments and organizations that have to help those devices get to those end users to create those magical user experiences, sometimes those experiences for IT or procurement or other folks isn't so magical just because of logistical challenges or other things. And our hope, our goal is to partner with institutions, organizations, et cetera, to help them to have great experiences with deploying, managing, supporting, securing those products as well. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of JNUC.
Thank you, everyone.